Presented by Caltech.
When I was a kid, my favorite day was Tuesday, the day I got to spend at Grandma's house. She had this wide yard with trees and bushes, perfect for tag or hide and go seek with my cousins and siblings. She had a TV that, unlike mine, had more than 3 channels. And best of all, this large green bowl filled with candy. We were allowed to have 2 pieces of candy, but only if we finished our pancakes with syrup and butter. It made sense to me. So you can imagine how happy I was when my mom told me that she, Papa, my 3 younger siblings, and I would be moving in with Grandma. Rewind a bit. When my mom was pregnant with me, she quit her job as a teacher. She'd seen firsthand how creativity and curiosity were suppressed by the rigid Indiana school system. She really wanted more for her kids. So she stayed home with us and taught us to explore our world, right, in the woods, in a library, or in a book. In this way, I was unschooled for the first 14 years of my life. I have something called dyspraxia. It's a sensory motor condition that made fine motor tasks like handwriting or typing really difficult for me as a kid. But with unschooling, I was able to learn at my own pace and in my own way. See, even though I never learned to take a test before 13, I never even learned algebra before 17. In that time, I also never learned to see my circumstances as limitations. My dad encouraged me too, but he also pushed me to leave my comfort zone. See, in school, he struggled with ADHD and dyslexia. Wasn't really diagnosed at that time that much, but despite his interest in science, he was told he's a quitter. He's told, you have no potential. After serving in the Army, my dad met my mom, but he hadn't finished college, and he ultimately had little choice but to support his family as a bricklayer. It was less than he wanted, but I remember he always tried to show me that I was not limited. When I was 10 years old, my dad got the best chance of his life to do that. He hurt his elbow. The doctor told him, you can no longer work as a bricklayer. My dad took that chance to pursue his dreams. In his late 30s, my dad went back to school to become a nurse. With no income, in the meantime, we sold our house, and the 6 of us moved into 2 bedrooms in my grandma's house. During that time, I saw my dad become a top student, even as he planned events with the community, competed nationally as a kayaker, and most of all, spent every remaining minute with his quickly growing kids. He put nothing in his life on hold. He lived every day like the next one might not come. One day, it didn't. In July of 2008, 3 weeks before his graduation, my dad was killed by a drunk driver. So I was now the oldest son with 3 younger siblings and a grieving mother. I remember sometime in the months that followed, she was looking at old pictures. I saw her and I walked in and I sat down next to her. And she said something like about how unfair it was, about how he was so good, like he did everything right, and he suffered. And then she started crying. I'd seen my mom cry before, but other adults were always around, and they would comfort her. I didn't really know what to do. I'd seen my dad do. I put my arm around her to comfort her. And it was really in that moment that I realized I was responsible, that I was able to take charge of my circumstances, that I had to be strong. See, up until this point, nothing in my life indicated I could succeed, especially as a scientist or engineer. But I saw how my dad didn't let his circumstances define his limitations. And so I saw no reason that mine should define mine. I took a new active role in my education. I improved in all areas I could, and I made trade-offs to compensate in those I could not. Rather than attending high school, I stitched together each semester of my curriculum through a combination of co-op classes, community college, online coursework, and self-study. Despite my dyspraxia and lack of formal education, I meticulously practiced until I could write legibly and study efficiently. Avoiding clumsy errors meant I had to work more slowly than my peers, so I made myself spend evenings and weekends catching up. At this point, I was also pretty socially inexperienced with the unschoolings. But I tried to teach myself to maintain eye contact, pay attention to speaking clearly, and having good posture. I stumbled through a lot of embarrassing mishaps and awkward conversations. I remember people used to say, like, "Oh, you're actually a really nice guy. I thought you hated me." I eventually realized what the problem was. I was like, I have to actually smile at people. It turns out that one's important. 3 years later, I was admitted a year early to Bard College at Simon's Rock to study biology and pre-engineering on a merit scholarship. 3 years later, I completed the requirements for my double major a year early and was admitted to Columbia to study electrical engineering. 3 years later, I stand here today as an NSF fellow in bioengineering at Caltech. The way my dad died showed me that life is impermanent and that we cannot know when it will end. But the way my dad lived showed me that we can find meaning in this very impermanence by living each moment with the urgency it deserves. This is the meaning of urgency.